Okay. Welcome back to Justin's Lighthouse video series, video lecture series, whatever we're going to call it. Anyway, this is probably going to be a while because this is such a great topic and I really want a lot of interaction. I titled it Inside the Criminal Mind, and people that are watching on YouTube, I know that you can't really see what's on the board. Don't worry about it because I'm going to cover every single point. All you got to do is just get your notebook out and take some notes. Okay, Inside the Criminal Mind, that's kind of a takeaway from this guy that I've studied quite a bit, Dr. Stanton Samenow. He and his partner, Dr. Yokelson, I forget his first name, but they've done probably more in-depth research on the criminal mind than probably anybody. And I've studied a lot of their stuff, including the book by the same title, Inside the Criminal Mind, and something that we use, that we really take away from that is, you know what, it is exactly the same as addict behavior. This is exactly how addicts think. They go hand in hand, because addicts by nature are criminals. Not necessarily that we mean to, but just by the mere use of our addiction, it's illegal. So by definition, that makes us criminals. Okay, but that's not so important. Doesn't matter whether you ever got busted for cocaine possession or something. It goes way deeper than that. The problem is we have an inherently flawed way of thinking. And, you know, I put some different categories up on the board, but I want to go down. I want to go down them one by one so we can discuss them. Don't think for a second it doesn't apply, because it all applies. You know, just like what we talk about with all the lecture topics. It's easy, you know, you have a little sobriety and you get to a point where you feel better, you look better, and we think, well, we must be better. But the reality is, and that's going to come out as we go through this, the reality is we have so much stuff to uncover, to look at, to get honest about, to change, to try to change, to fail, to learn, to try again, succeed. I mean, it is a long process. And the only addicts who don't recover are the ones who will not, I'm not going to quote the big book, who will not give themselves the time to go through the process of change. You know, and we're going to cover that because one of our flaws, part of our inherently flawed thinking, is that we always reach a certain point, and it's pretty early on, where we start thinking, hey, I got this, I'm good. And you'll see one of the characteristics is we have a lack of time perspective. When I say we, I mean addicts. We lack time perspective. What does that mean? It means that we do not use the past as a learning experience very well. And now that's kind of in the middle, so I'll get back to that. But I did want to start off by saying, until genuine transformation takes place, these characteristics are still very much a part of us. And even after we have what step 12 would refer to as a spiritual awakening, I like to refer to it as, a complete and total spiritual transformation. Until that occurs, you're always going to have these characteristics that, as you'll see by the end of this is why we have never made it on our own. Until real change occurs, and you'll know, how will you know that real change is occurring? That's the easy part. It won't be when you get your stuff back. It'll be when your thinking is different, and more importantly, your behavior is different. Until then, I remember in my own case, early on, we want so much for other people to see that we've changed, so we will manipulate changed behavior. I will pretend just for a second, I will stuff it in, and I will act like when I hear the word no, it's not bothering me. Or we'll even talk about stuff. We'll even say, you know what? I had this experience the other day and I really, really wanted to do it. And then for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And I started to get really angry, but I caught myself. And I realized, wait a minute, that's the old me. That's all fake. That's all a manipulation. When real change occurs, you won't have to have those conversations. You'll just be in the new behavior. You won't have a need to express that to anybody else. You'll just be living the behavior. Very important, and that's part of the cycle that we go through. We can't help it. The manipulation behavior is so ingrained in us that we're going to automatically respond in certain ways to certain things. And like you hear me say all the time, that doesn't even take place until about 6 months, because we really spend the first 90 days just kind of crashing, getting a grip on things, starting to get a little teachable. But that doesn't mean, and we gain a lot of new knowledge, but that doesn't mean our behavior's changed. And you know that because we're still impulsive, we're still manipulating, we're still doing things that don't take others into account, etc., etc. We still have a sense of entitlement. Stuff doesn't even real change can't even begin until about 6 months. That's been my experience. I don't mean my personal experience. That's been my professional experience. That's what I see. It's about 6 months. And disclosure with myself personally, it was about 6 months. It was about 6 months because that was enough time for me to try to pretend and push the envelope and try to get away with and try to deny and try to pretend like, oh, I had it all together. But fortunately, I kept having failures and I kept getting confronted and I kept getting smacked upside the head. That's when real change can begin. Okay, so don't let that word criminal. I mean, I started to just call it, inside the addict mind. But I really wanted to stress, because addicts will look at that and go, oh, well, it says criminal mind, that doesn't apply to me, and then we'll just tune it out. No, it absolutely applies. It's the same thing. And, when we tell our stories, how many times have we stolen stuff from people? How many times have we stolen stuff and then sold stuff and broken into people's houses and broken into people's cars? We're criminals. And certainly in our addiction, we become criminals. 80% of the people in prison right now across this country are there, not necessarily on a drug charge, but they're there on a drug-related criminal behavior. Maybe it's grand theft. They stole a car, but they did it either while they were high or they did it to get money to get high, or stay out of withdrawal, however you want to look at it. Okay, so that's quite a long overview, but here's some characteristics. Let's just go down these one box at a time. The addict thinking represents closed thinking. Now, let me preface this too. Some of these seem kind of brutal, and they are brutal. But we got to look at this stuff. This is brutal. It's by design. We need to be willing to get smacked upside the head, punched in the gut, with our own behavior, with our own characteristics. And what we want to do is we want to just kind of skate past it. Well, the reality is we have really closed thinking. Well, what does that mean? Because remember, we were talking about dishonesty the other day. Remember, we think that we are we see ourselves as a good person. We think generally, I'm a good person and I'm good to other people and I don't understand. I don't ever intend to hurt anybody. But see, therein lies the problem. Like we were talking about the other day with our dishonesty. Intent, go in front of a judge and say, Judge, this is an old Steve Martin joke, but it's funny, it's applicable. Judge, I didn't mean to shoot the guard. I didn't mean to hurt anyone at the bank. I didn't mean to run that person over, but they were in my way, and I was trying to get away from the cops, and I didn't mean anyone any harm. Addicts have survived on that thinking, that it's okay as long as I didn't mean to do it. And then we can actually be very confused when we have consequences. We don't understand. We end up over here, man. People just don't understand me. You don't understand. I didn't mean to hurt you. That's all sick thinking. The way we really change is we start accepting responsibility for our behavior. But as long as we've got closed thinking, we're not going to be receptive. We're not self-critical. We don't disclose anything. Now think about it. What does that mean? We don't disclose anything. Well, think about that. When we talk about ourselves, we only talk about good things. And if we do, that's actually listed over here too. If we do have conversations about ourselves, in the negative, it's always in the past tense. It's, oh, well, yeah, that's true. I used to, push my girlfriend around a little bit. I used to steal from my employer. But that was long, I was sick back then. That was my addiction, that's not me anymore. And that completely keeps us stuck in our closed thinking. Because remember, until we have a genuine transformation, these characteristics are still very much a part of us. And if you want to know what those look like, you have to begin to get self-critical. We're not real big on critical thinking. That's kind of a whole nother lecture, but think about that for a minute. Critical thinking absolutely relates to recovery. Because if we don't develop the ability to look at ourselves in a very critical way, regardless of fear, regardless of ego, regardless of lack of validation, very little will change. In fact, really nothing will change. We can fake it for a little bit. We have to be willing to disclose reality. But like we were talking about the other day with dishonesty, a lot of times we just don't see it. We've been so stuck that unless someone else brings it up, confronts us with it, holds the mirror up in front of us, we will not get it. And that's why accountability is so important. That's why our willingness to be a part of an accountability process is so important. But what'll save your life is you developing the ability to confront yourself. Maybe in the beginning we need some help. We need some people to say, no, that just the other day I saw you da-da-da. That's not a changed person. And then we go, oh, that's what you're talking. Oh man, I didn't realize that. Because I've always done that, right? So we don't think anything of it. The other part of that is what the big book talks about. Some of us are just constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves. And that's sad. I've actually seen it. I've seen a couple of people in my lifetime who seem to just not be able to get honest with themselves. And one of them was my alcoholic father. But I've seen a couple in my professional career, for the most part, and that's what the big book talks about. There is a small percentage of us, for the most part, we have the ability to get honest, but depending on your level of shame and trauma and guilt and fear, you may resist it more than the next guy. But we have it; it's there. We have the ability to get honest with ourselves. So in our closed thinking, we're really good at pointing out and giving feedback about the faults of others. Well, that's a common one. We talk about that a lot. But do you know what that looks like in you? That's what's important. It's not enough to have the information. Because, good Lord, we're filled with recovery information. We got so much knowledge. Everybody in this room could teach a class. But can you apply it to yourself? Do you know what it looks like in you? when I'm being closed-minded, or when my thinking is closed, and I'm not being receptive to reality, what does that look like in me? Well, my first red flag is that something's wrong with me, is I start getting a little bit more irritable, right? We start getting a little bit more uncomfortable. We start getting more impulsive. I start looking beyond my present moment for something exciting or fun that I can do instead of deal with this situation. That should be a red flag. In the past, we've just followed that. You know what? I can't deal with this right now. I gotta go. You know what? Let's go to a meeting. Oh, let's go to the lake. Oh, we want to do anything other than just be still and deal with whatever situation we're dealing with. And remember, with addicts, a lot of times what that situation is that we're trying to avoid is just being still, just sitting still. Change has not occurred yet. Full, complete transformation has not occurred yet, because we still have closed thinking and we're still very uncomfortable when nothing exciting is going on around us. And then the fourth one is we lie by omission. We're just talking about this. And I erased that term on the board. Say that again. What was that? We decided 2 words. It was like diversionary.
Diversionary truths.
Diversionary truths. Man, we're masters of that. We'll give you some facts over here and completely leave out some facts over there. And we've done it for so long. Remember, prisons are filled with people who think like we do. That's a scary statistic. That means if you haven't already been to prison, if we don't change our thinking, more than likely, before it's all done with, we're going to end up doing some time. Because this is the thinking that not only leads us back into our addiction, an active addiction, it's going to lead us, because it's getting stronger. We're in here and it's out there doing push-ups. Sorry, let me just shut that down. So it gets progressive. If you hadn't been to jail yet, if we don't change, that will be in your future. Jails, institutions, and death. That wasn't just a cool little neat thing that they could put in the big book, 75 years ago. It's a fact. We're going to end up in jail or some, mental institution, or we're going to die. That's how important this is. And you guys have heard me say this too. The only people who just never really get recovery are the ones who don't recognize this as a life or death situation. We are in a life or death situation. We're dying. We're already dying. It's killing us. Unless we change, if I could just get a better job, if I could just get a hotter chick, if I could just get the cool car, if I could just get my mom to get off my back, if I could just get then I'll be okay. That's wrong. That's this thinking. That's wrong thinking. No, once we change, then we'll be okay, because we'll know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. The next category is the victim stance. We play the victim. Don't reject that. Figure out what that... Hang on, let me make a little adjustment here. Know what that looks like in you when you're playing the victim. We got to do each one of these. In fact, before the week is over, we'll probably do a group where I'll help you guys identify that in yourself. This is why accountability is so important, because I don't want to think of myself as a victim. We hear that word, and I think of the little runny-nosed, geeky dude on the playground in 4th grade that no one wanted to be around, and he was always pouting and moping about something. So when I hear the word victim or victim stance, I think, well, that's not me, because I associate it with, little dweeb boy. No, that is me when I get honest with myself. When I get honest with myself, I totally can play the victim. I see myself as a victim, and I blame social conditions. I blame others. Heck, I might even blame, my mental illness, Or my whatever, but I got asthma and I can't, blah, blah, blah. That was a big one. I used to use that a lot. I got asthma. But then as I got older, I didn't really think of myself as playing a victim. Well, that's BS. Know what that looks like in you or you'll miss it. What does it look like? What do you look like when you're playing the victim? And sometimes it can just be really simple. You just get pouty. You start to isolate. You might not even change your physical behavior, but your mind slips into something. Your mind starts slipping into, well, that's not very fair. Or this isn't right. I should be able to blank. That's us playing the victim. Next category, we see ourselves as a good person. Now, that doesn't mean that we suddenly have to see ourselves as a bad person. And by the way, if anybody just thought that, that's classic all or nothing addict thinking. Oh, are you saying I can't see myself as a good person? So what are you saying? I'm a bad person? That is classic addict thinking. No, the problem is we only see ourselves as a good person. And so there's no room for change. Think about it. You got your car, and you go out and you take a look at it, and if everything about your car you think is perfect, you'll never wash it, you'll never change the oil, you'll never buff out the scratches, you'll never vacuum the inside. That's just not reality. It's both. Yeah, of course we're good people. We have a lot of good qualities. But we have hidden behind this. Because we see ourselves as a good person, we just leave it at that. And then we can't figure out when things don't go our way. But remember that life isn't about things going our way. Life is about responsibility, which the addict criminal doesn't have. So we only focus on our positive qualities and we fail to acknowledge our self-destructive behavior. Okay, now let me expand on this for a second. It's easy to hear that word destructive and think, when I hear it, I think of things getting torn up. I think of like a demolition job. I think of, the walls caving in and the ceiling falling in and just pieces of stuff everywhere. Well, in a very real sense, that is what we end up doing to our own lives through our destructive behavior. But when it comes to our behavior, it can be much more subtle, much more intangible. Know what that looks like. What does your destructive behavior look like? What's really happening when you're in your destructive behavior? Well, I get more self-entitled. I can get more irritable. I can get more argumentative. I can make decisions that will get me what I want in that moment, but then I miss out on some positive thing more long term. The truth is we arrived at this place in our lives through our own self-destructive behavior. But we didn't recognize it as self-destructive behavior. What we thought was it was everybody else's fault. Right? I had to quit my last job because my boss was a jerk. The people I worked with were mean or they were idiots. We really love, don't miss this. We love putting other people down. But if someone just walked up to us on the street and said, hey, do you think you put people down a lot? We'd say, no, I love people. That's not true. So you see how deeply deceived we are. We're self-deceived. We really see ourselves as a good person. Well, of course we're a good person, but we also have a lot of very self-destructive qualities, or I should say characteristics, and unless you get a handle on those, you're going to repeat the exact cycle. So know what destructive behavior looks like in your life. Destructive behavior is any thought processes that I fall into, any behavior that I fall into that just doesn't work out for me long term. right? It's not my fault that I'm not employed today. It's the economy's fault. It's my mom's fault. It's my job's fault. That boss was such a jerk, man. Nobody could stand to work with this guy. And then we'll build ourselves up by, bringing in some out. Everyone there, hates the guy. But everyone else there still has a job today. See, that leads into we don't understand responsibility. Now remember, understand, this is tied to our trauma. But it can't be an excuse anymore. We have to be willing to change it. It's like, hey, I would come pick you up today, but I've got 2 flat tires. Well, at some point, we gotta fix the tires. At some point, we gotta be willing to vacuum out the inside of our car. At some point, I gotta be willing to wash it. I gotta be willing to take the negative and correct it. But I can't correct it unless I first admit it. Right? I'm not gonna vacuum out the inside of my vehicle if I don't first admit to myself that it's dirty and it needs to be vacuumed. I just keep jumping in going, it's fine, it's cool, I can live with it, it's cool. That's what got us here. That's exactly what I'm talking about today. I know it's kind of a simplistic example, but we got so much deeper to go. We got to get big time honest with ourselves. And failing to acknowledge our own self-destructive behavior is probably the single most destructive thing that we could possibly do to ourselves. We tend to build up ourself at other people's expense. Okay, well, now think about this for a minute before you reject that, before you go, oh yeah, that's not me. Because I know I used to sit in classes like this and look at this and this kind of stuff and go, oh yeah, man, my mom, she was just like that. Or, oh, that's my ex. Or, oh, that's my current. Oh, that's my, yeah, I worked for a guy one time and he was like that. And I could apply this entire board to somebody else. But they weren't in rehab. They were living their lives. I was the sick guy in rehab. And until I actually applied it all to myself, I was never going to get better. I was never going to have my transformation moment. And having gone through that, I can attest that there is an awakening that is coming. And it's beyond anything that you can imagine. So you'll know when it's occurred because you will literally see the world in a different way. Until then, we're pushing through, we're learning, we're trying to apply, we're doing the best we can. But that's why time is so important. It will happen. It will happen. Okay, next category, we have a lack of time perspective. What does that mean? Well, we don't use the past as a learning experience. We expect other people to meet our demands immediately. Now think about that. You guys have seen me do the little illustration. I need my problem solved right now. Okay, well that's a little illustrative, but think about that. We can do that just in our head. It comes out in a lot of different ways. We tend to interrupt conversations. Think about it. The next time, and this is how we change. The next time you're having a moment where you're needing something or you're wanting something, give yourself 10 minutes. See if you can commit to just 10 minutes, go do something recovery related, and then go deal with it. Whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is. What we do, what addicts do, because we don't have we lack a perspective of time, that means we lack other people's a perspective on other people's time or other places or other experiences. Right? Think about that. We don't really understand how long things take. We can't understand why it's not happening right now. All we know is how I feel at any given moment and what I need and what I need you to do for me so I can get it. So we interrupt a lot of people's conversations. We see it in this environment all the time. All the time. It's, hey, I need this, or hey, what about this, or hey, when's this gonna, and how come that isn't? And it's, I need. That's not change. Change is you understand, you have a perspective of time. Your decisions become based on facts, not assumptions. No, what does that mean? Don't think about it. Everything comes back to that irritability, restlessness, and discontentment. If you're irritable, restless, and discontent, it's because you're not responding well to something. That's it. Well, as long as we are unchanged and living from the position of our criminal/addict thinking, we get irritable, restless, and discontent because we think the circumstance needs to change. Well, I wouldn't have to be irritable if this other thing had just happened for me the way I think it should have happened for me. It's funny to have such an in-depth conversation about stuff that's going to totally change our lives, and then someone get up in the middle of it and walk out. That's the kind of stuff that blows me away. Got a lot of work to do. The other one is we lack effort. Now, nobody wants to admit this, but the reality is we're unwilling to do anything we find boring or disagreeable. Well, think about that. When was the last time you did something that you didn't want to do? I mean, seriously, think about it. When was the last time you did something you didn't want to do? Can't think of anything. That's not good. That's not a good sign. We should know. We should know things because the thinking changes. As your thinking changes, your behavior will change. And the majority of your day will be made up of activities that are based on responsibility, not based on feeling. But until then, we'll live right here. We just don't really want to do things that I don't find exciting or fun. I don't want to do anything I don't want to do. But we expect everyone else to do stuff as long as it satisfies us. Think about that. When we say I can't, we really mean I won't. Oh, I can't do that. No, it means I won't do that because I don't see the excitement in it. I don't see the fun in it. There's nothing there. We have a complete need to be in control of every situation. What does that look like? Well, when was the last time something didn't go the way you thought it would go? You didn't handle it well. That's power. That's a need for control. It's not real. We don't really have a need to be in control. What we have a need for is to accept that we aren't in control. When was the last time that ever occurred? It's been a while. And then we use manipulation and deceit. How do we do that? Well, here's a good example. I was thinking about some things, some specific examples. It's easy to come in here and we have these discussions and we say, okay, everything's, I'm doing great. I'm thinking about other people. But in reality, when no one's looking, for the last week and a half, I've been slipping into the kitchen when no one was paying attention and using somebody else's protein. Right? That's manipulation and deceit. But until I get honest about that stuff, I'm not going to change. It's, using someone else's shampoo. Well, there's nothing wrong with using, hey, man, if you're out of shampoo and you got to use some shampoo, go for it. But did you do anything to make it right? Did you say, hey, I'll get you some shampoo, or by the way, I had to use a little dab of your shampoo, I hope you don't mind. At least deal with it in some way. We'll sit back and we'll do these sneaky little behaviors, and then we'll never own it. And then we can't figure out why our life never works out for us. It's this, because we're not changed. We're still stuck in our criminal thinking, our addict thinking, and this one probably You know, this is like the granddaddy of them all. And we have an overwhelming sense of uniqueness. Well, what does that mean? Well, let me look that up real quick, if I can find my glasses. You know, in a nutshell, we think that our problems, that we have a unique set of problems, that uniqueness. The actual definition of uniqueness is the quality of being the only one of its kind. Oh my God, that's so funny. The quality of being the only one of its kind. And yet, every single addict on the face of the planet thinks that. At least at some point, at least in the beginning stages of our recovery journey. We truly believe that we are one of a kind. You know, what's the population now? Over 7 billion people on the planet. 7 billion people on the planet, and I think I'm the only one that has my problems. I think I'm the only one that has my ideas, that has my circumstances. No one else could possibly understand what's going on with me. That is total and complete uniqueness. Which also means my problems are more special. It means that I'm going to require a more special solution. Well, these are the people that don't make it. You know, if I require a special solution, but mankind has only been able to come up with one, I'm screwed. And that's the excuse that we use. I've seen it. Heck, I did it. I used it myself. That I need, you know, the steps don't work for me. Treatment doesn't work for me. The God thing doesn't work for me. You know, we've heard these, but we'll also think that way. This is why it's absolutely vital that you know what your uniqueness idea looks like. Because if you don't, you'll miss it and you won't change. That means that, you know, and it comes out in so many different ways. If you have an excuse every time you don't want to do something that you don't want to do, that's uniqueness. That's me thinking, hey, everyone, the whole group's going to go bowling tomorrow, and I come up with a reason not to go. I'm acting like I'm unique. I'm acting like, you know, I'm more special. I really need to do this other important thing. We're still living a self-centered life. We don't, you know, addicts don't have a clue about how to go with the flow, but that's one of the first things we like to talk about. One of the first things we say is, you know, hey, I'm just going with the flow. I'm just being surrendered. There's nothing farther from the truth. Because if that were true, we would actually be going with the flow. We would actually be willing to do things that we didn't want to do. This uniqueness is as deadly as our denial. As long as I see myself as different or better than anybody else, I'm screwed. You know, of course, the Bible talks about that. You see yourself. You gotta see yourself. I don't remember the actual scripture, but that's what Paul's talking about. If you see yourself as better than anyone, you're in big trouble. That we ought not to view ourselves as better than anyone or anything. So, you know, we go through this process and we're really good at learning the lingo. You know, we can even kind of come to understand what the 12 steps mean. We can understand the concept behind each step and the unmanageability, and we can learn about the word denial, and we can read part of the big book, and we can develop a little spirituality, but we still have these underlying inherent characteristics, and unless we get brutally honest about them and change them, life will not get any different. let me give you, I'm going to go back to this one because there was another example I want to talk about. This lack of time perspective. It means that we don't use the past as a learning experience, as an example. Okay, think about this. This is a crystal clear illustration. In my dysfunction, I know I went, through that vicious cycle or that roller coaster, whatever you want to call it, many times, maybe 6, 7 times since high school. Where, what does that look like? You seem to be going along okay, but you're getting a little out of control. And remember, I didn't even start using until I was 20. But my dysfunction started long before then. This is not a drug problem. This is a life problem. This is a we don't have a clue how to think problem. When you change these things and we get honest about these things and we learn how to grow up, your need to use drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is that you use to not deal with you, the desire will go away. You're not going to sit around, white knuckling it, going, "Oh man, I'm craving so bad." That's not even part of your life anymore, because you're a changed person. You won't have cravings. Okay, so the point is, I'm talking about these cycles that we go through. Okay, so I'm going along. I've got a job. I've got a car that somebody else bought me, and I've got an apartment that someone else pretty much pays for, even though I have a job, because I would use my money to do what I wanted to do. And then I would look to my grandma to, come in and rescue me. "Oh my God, my electric bill's due, and I don't know what to do." And so eventually it catches up with you. Eventually, the enablers in our life say, "No more, we're out, something's not right, you need to get your life together." And then naturally we crash and burn. And so, we lose the job, we lose the apartment, we lose the car, we lose the girl. And then, we move in with someone, we're couch hopping now for just a little while. And then somebody bails us out. Maybe it's another parent or another grandparent, or somebody will bail us out and they will set us up again. So what do? We get the job, we get the apartment, we get the car, we get the girl. And then time goes by, but because we didn't learn anything from our past experience, we repeat the exact same thing. We have a lack of time perspective. That's what that means. And so what do we do? And this, if you're having trouble seeing that, all you got to do is get honest about your own thinking. What do we do every time, including this time, where we get sober again, we get a little cushion under our belt, we can breathe easy, the wolves aren't at the door, we're feeling a little bit of peace. Where does our thinking go? Does our thinking go to, "Wow, this is the first time in my life that I've felt this much peace, this much contentment. I need to do, if I'm going to be responsible and learn from my past experience, I want to do exactly what I've been doing that gained me this peace and serenity so that I can continue to grow." No, that's not what we think. What we think when we get just a little bit of peace and serenity, we think, because we don't learn from the past, I think I want to change it now. I think now I should go back to work, get someone to get me a car, start school again. I need to start checking classes and pick a school, and I want to start doing all the same stuff I used to do when I was going through this vicious cycle. I'm going to stop doing what I did that got me peace and serenity, and I'm going to start doing what used to give me great and total self-destruction. That's how screwed up our thinking is. and you guys hear me say this all the time, don't ever underestimate how sick we really are. It took me a long time to grasp that in myself. Now, does that mean getting a car and getting a girlfriend and working and, going back to school? I mean, geez, I went back to school like 15 times. Does that mean those are bad things? Of course not. But until we learn from the past, there's an appropriateness to those things. My sponsor used to tell me this all the time, and here's a great rule of thumb. Here's how you know it's the right decision. Whatever it is, here's how you know it's the right decision. It was somebody else's idea. Here's how you know it's the wrong decision. It was your idea. If you're thinking it up, it's not time yet. It's not right. If it's your decision to whatever, I think it'd be a really good idea. There's a lot of cute girls at, up at church, or there's a lot of cute, I think I need a girlfriend. It's not the right time. And it's not a maybe. It's not a, well, you're right. It's probably not the right. No, it is not the right time because it was our decision. It's like, I could keep going on. I know that's crystal clear. But think about that. Let that just sink in. My thinking is so screwed up that all I can think of to solve my special problem is to repeat exactly the same behavior. That, my friends, is the sickness of addiction. The best I can come up with is to do the same thing over again. Wow. If that's not humbling, if that doesn't shake you in your boots, if that doesn't, send up some bells and whistles going, holy crap, I'm not even close to where I thought I was, you're being closed, you're not being receptive, because that's reality. Think about it. Here's a more graphic illustration. Every time I start to feel a little bit better, I get on my bicycle and I drive it right off the cliff. And I break my arm and I break my leg and I've got a concussion and I got a branch sticking out of my head. Say, the help comes and they get me to the hospital and they pump me full of all the kind of meds that I like, and they do surgery, and they fix me up, and just a couple months go by, and finally they let me out of the hospital, and I look good, and I feel good. Oh man, what do I do? What do I think is the smartest thing to do? Oh, I'm going to get back on my bike, and I'm going to ride it right off the cliff again. Oh, I'm going to get back on my bike, I'm going to ride it right off the cliff again. Know what yours looks like. Know what your self-destruction looks like. The beautiful thing is yes, we have a lack of time perspective, which means we haven't learned from our past. But we can now. We can learn from our past. And that's what surrender looks like. Surrender looks like, obviously, I don't have a clue how to put a normal functioning life together. What I do well is I can put a lot of things together in a really short period of time, and I can feel the excitement of it, and I feel like I'm making things happen. And we're good at that. We're masters of that. We can pull that off for a while. But my thinking hasn't changed. So I end up making the same decisions, and the excitement eventually wears off, and now I'm in the grind of dealing with real life experiences. Professors that absolutely cannot teach. Classmates that I cannot stand. Bosses that are dumber than a box of rocks. Coworkers who are lazy and leave me to do all the work. See, those are real life scenarios. And until we change our thinking and then ultimately our behavior, we can't deal with those situations. That's what kills us. It's not the drinking and using. It's that I keep thinking I know what's best for me. I keep thinking that I'm unique and I just need a little something, something. You know, and you guys have seen, heck, you see it in this environment. I've lived it. Don't fall victim to it. There's an appropriateness. You know, remember that rule of thumb. And my sponsor's not the only place I've ever heard that, but man, that's powerful. Here's how you know. Here's how you know it's a bad idea. Really? How? It was your idea. Oh, that's not easy to hear. But can you tell yourself that? We have to be receptive. And the more you recognize just how sick our thinking really is, the more receptive we become. But if I just really don't think I'm that sick, and really, I was looking back over my life now that I've had some time to think about it, and really the only reason that I got in this little situation over here, is because, my ex, she was off the deep end, and she did me wrong, and the only reason, I was having trouble at work was because of da-da-da-da-da. And the only reason I had, lost my car was because of da-da-da. Well, what does that sound like? It sounds like what we've just been talking about. It sounds like the victim blaming everything else. But what's the common denominator in all of those experiences? Us. And our decision making. It's my judgment. What am I doing in a situation like that in the first place? Because my judgment stinks. I only know how to make decisions based on getting what I want. Think about that. I know it sounds so, well, yeah, of course. No, think about that for a minute. Really let that sink in. I only know how to make decisions based on getting what I want? No, that's not true. Yeah, it is. Challenge yourself. Test yourself. What was the last decision you made based on not something that you wanted, but something that you needed? A responsibility. Well, I made a decision to do my laundry, and nobody wants to do laundry. No, but you want clean clothes. See, there's a reward in it. That's not what I'm talking about. That's the throwaway rationalization that we tend to come up with. Well, I do stuff all day long that I don't want to do. No, play the tape through. Take a look at it all the way. Well, I don't want to cook dinner. I hate cooking dinner, but you like to eat. There's a reward in it. When was the last decision you made based on solely a responsibility? You did not want to do it. There was going to be absolutely no gratification in it, but it was the right thing to do. It was the responsible thing to do. And you know what that looks like a lot, certainly in early recovery? What could he possibly be talking about? Well, that's what surrender looks like. That's when we just allow life to happen, not the way we want it to happen, but the way it is happening. Life on life's terms. Well, what does that look like? That means that I'm not going to get my way every day. I'm not always going to get to do what I want to do. Well, yeah, that seems reasonable. But what's so self-destructive about that? The way we respond when it happens. Think about that. How do we respond when I'm not getting something that I want? Not well. We get irritable, we get restless, we get discontent. This is why, the first one, I should have put letters or numbers on these so we could identify them. But like A, closed thinking. This is why becoming receptive is so important. The next time, and I'm willing to bet, before the end of the day, you're going to encounter something that you don't particularly care for. How you respond to it in that moment will dictate whether you get to grow forward or whether you just stay stuck in this. So think about, what could that look like? What are some of those things? Well, you got to anticipate them. You got to use your critical thinking. And unfortunately, schools don't teach critical thinking anymore. We tend to be task-oriented thinking, right? Memorize these questions and then take a test on it later. Well, that task-oriented thinking is also killing us in life, and will kill us in recovery if we don't learn how to critically think. Think about the things that we get upset about. Oh man, so-and-so didn't do such and such. Well, right, that happens sometimes. That's life. No, but see, you don't understand, man. It was supposed to go down like this, but it didn't go down like that. Yeah, that's life. What was going on with me that I was unrealistically expecting life to just always go my way? You see, that's critical thinking. Critical thinking is I might not like what's cooked for dinner tonight, but I'd like to eat. So, and if I'm going to be responsible, if I'm going to do the next right thing, then it's going to be important for me to eat what's prepared, not get stuck in my uniqueness and go, well, I don't like that, man. I'll just wait. I'm going to make my own food, and I'm going to blah, 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 and I'm going to... See, that's the uniqueness. That's not going with the flow. That's not surrendered behavior. And I'm just using that as an example. You guys have to come up with your examples. I'm just throwing things out that I've seen over the years. It's in these little bitty, what they seem to be intangible things. They're not intangible things. This is the stuff that keeps us sick. But we'll come in here and we'll go, oh man, I go with the flow. No, we don't. We don't go with the flow. We still, we still know, oh man, someone was looking at my shirt because the corner of it was, was folded over a different way. And no, that's not going with the flow. That's not life on life's terms. I need my world to go exactly the way, I need to be in control of every situation in order for me to feel okay. That's the sickness. That's not realistic. And so that's why our well-being is based on people, other people, places, things, and situations. And as long as everything falls into place today, I'm going to be okay. But if one thing doesn't play out the way I think it should play out, I'm in trouble. Right? We get stuck in our head, we get irritable, we walk around and we say things like, this is bullshit, and this is bull crap, and I'm not gonna, and I can't believe. That's not what a surrendered person looks like. That's what a criminal / addict thinker looks like, who hasn't changed yet. You guys have to identify these things in yourself. That's the getting honest part. But you'll never do it if you don't get open, if you don't get receptive, if you don't develop that critical thinking. This is the difference. And then what will happen is, and I can guarantee it, if you will take the time and the effort, because it's a lot of effort, it's not easy, to develop critical thinking, and then apply that to yourself as you grow in recovery and ultimately get the job back, get the girl back, get the car back, get the whatever back, this time you'll keep it. This time it will be a completely different experience, not because you chose to work at a different kind of company, but because you're different. It's never the company's fault. I've worked for some jerks, but including myself, it's not the people play. It's not the job. It's not the car. It's not the girl. It's us. And this is what the us part is our judgment sucks. We don't know how to deal with things. Because we're closed-minded, we play the victim, we see ourselves as basically a good person, etc., etc. And then down here, we lack interest in a responsible performance. I've already really kind of covered that. But think about this. We don't have a sense of obligation, we only have a sense to do what seems to be fun or exciting. Now here, I'll give you an example. This is a really common example. Okay. You got some time on your hands, and you don't know what to do. You're starting to get a little restless. You're starting to get a little bit restless, maybe a little anxious. Where does your mind go? Your mind goes to something fun and exciting, right? It doesn't, and you have to train it to do it, because it's not part of our natural makeup. We were too sick. It's not going to be an automatic. Our mind does not go to a sense of obligation, meaning, well, what should I do right now? And then critically go down your checklist. Well, have I read the big book yet today? Have I done any journaling today? Have I completed any assignment that maybe I've been given? Have I done my chore? Have I slowed down yet today? Have I listened more? Have I talked less? Have I chased anything spiritual today? Have I followed rules today? Am I being teachable today? Those aren't automatic. What's automatic is you know what? I just need something fun. I just need some excitement. I want to go and be around girls. I want to walk to 7-Eleven. Or whatever. Oh, there's a church function tonight. Or, oh, hey, there's an AA meeting tonight. Or, hey, there's nothing wrong with church, 7-Eleven, or AA. That's not what I'm saying. And by the way, that's how we'll rationalize it. Well, hey, it's AA. Well, here's how you know it's not necessarily the right thing. Because we hadn't chased our obligation. Understanding what our obligation is in any given moment is the key. But then you have to develop that discipline to chase obligations, and that's when you grow up. I mean, that's what will mature us in a big way. As long as my first thought is fun and exciting, I'll stay stuck. I have to replace that. So in the beginning, what that looks like is oh man, I'm just feeling a little bit restless, or another word that we like to use in our dysfunction, bored. Oh, I'm just bored. I was just looking for something important to do. Well, that's not necessarily true, because what we choose isn't an obligation, it's fun, and we like to do it. Hit the pause button, and then redirect yourself. This is where it gets very, very powerful. These are the moments where you truly gain control of yourself. Other than that, we're looking for people, places, and things for control. So, if I'm stuck, if I'm bored, we'll just turn this into an assignment. If I'm feeling bored, man, there's so much to teach on this. Okay, when I'm feeling bored, my next decision puts myself in a position for someone else. I now need someone else or something else to make me okay. That's the sickness. Right? I'm bored. Hey, Mom, can I borrow the car? No. Now I'm screwed, right? I put my well-being in Mom's hands. Mom, I'm bored, and now I need you to do something so that I can have some fun and excitement. But now you're telling me no, so now it's your fault. But what else could I have done? recognize that boredom isn't my problem. That's a me problem. If I'm bored, that means I'm not I'm not fulfilling my obligations. Well, what would my obligation be? Well, maybe I need to go clean my room. Well, no, that's not fun. You don't understand. I already cleaned my room. You're missing it. At any given moment in the course of our 24-hour days, there's an obligation, and there's an exciting instant gratification. When we start choosing the obligation over the gratification, that's when real change begins to occur. Well, how will you know what that is? Well, that's where that saying comes from, the next right thing. What is the next right thing? Well, we think the next right thing is whatever leads us to fun and excitement. But is it? What happened to our values? We say we have values, but where are they? These are the times we call on them. We look at them. We hit the pause button. We slow down. Why are we in such a hurry? We're in such a hurry because I'm bored. It's the way I always react when I'm bored, and I need some instant gratification so I don't have to feel bored. How's that been working for us? It hasn't. That's what keeps us sick. This is about understanding this about ourselves, and then now changing it, beginning to change it. And that's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It is flipping hard. But you know what else was hard? Sleeping in the back seat of a car that didn't run with needles sticking out of your arm. Living under a bridge and not knowing, when you're going to eat next. That's hard. It's all about perspective. Ownership attitude. I got to finish this. I know this has been going on for a while. Well, actually, we've only been at it for about an hour. Ownership attitude. This is very, very, very important. We see things as something to possess. Now, remember, we were talking about this not long ago. You know how possessive we get with our stuff? Hey man, that's my fork. How'd you get hold of my fork? Oh, it was in the dishwasher. Oh man, it shouldn't even been in the dishwasher. We can freak out over stuff. Critical thinking, take a look at that. And we have no concept of ownership or other people's rights. So what does it mean to own something? How does one arrive at ownership?
Bought it. You got a receipt for it. Title.
Yeah, exactly. We put effort into acquiring it. We earned it. We received it in a normal, healthy way. That's ownership. But look at the things that we tend to take ownership of. And we really believe, hey man, that's my stuff. Don't be looking at my stuff. Hey, did you ask if you could use that? Hey, that's not yours, that's mine. We don't understand ownership. We just need to possess. We just need to possess. You know what I've seen a lot over the years is when people leave, sometimes they leave things behind. Whether it's clothes, whether it's whatever, food, shoes, pillows, linens, whatever. And inevitably, heck, sometimes I wonder, man, did this happen the night before? Because the person just left, and now someone else in the group is already in possession of the stuff they left behind, when the person only walked out the door like 2 minutes ago. Like, what the heck? Well, that's what I'm talking about. We don't understand ownership concept, or the concept of ownership. We just see something, and if we want it, we will take possession of it. And we don't think about the rights of others. We don't think about what might be a particular policy in any given situation. We don't think about, oh, well, I wonder, maybe they didn't mean to leave this behind. Maybe I should see if I can help track them down, because they may want it. Because after all, if they meant to leave it, surely they would have just given it to someone. They would have said, hey, I'm leaving, right? So maybe a mistake was made. Those aren't our first thoughts. Our first thought is, oh, that person's gone, so now I'm going to take possession of whatever they left. I see it all the time. And you know what? I used to do that too. I used to do the same thing. Heck, I'll still do the same thing if I'm not paying attention. Go, oh, whoa, oh, that's kind of cool. Nobody's around. They do these little experiments on the street, where people will glue a $100 bill to the floor, to the concrete or something, and then they have like a hidden camera. And a lot of people will come by and they'll leave it. A lot of people will come by and try to pick it up. Sometimes they'll pick it up and then they'll start looking around. Maybe even, they're trying to find the owner. And some people will pick it up, make sure nobody's looking, and then keep it. Well, okay, maybe that's not a good analogy. I mean, cash on the ground, that's kind of, what are you going to do, turn in a $100 bill? If nobody's there, we've all found money on the ground. But what if it's like a whole wallet? You got their ID. My daughter recently had an experience like this. She took a little trip to New York City, and she left her purse on the subway. And she got really lucky, because by the time she got back home to Chicago, New York City Police Department had called and said, hey, we've got your purse. All the cash had been taken. They left the cards and they left her ID, but of course they took the cash, and I guarantee you the way they rationalize that is well, I'm just going to take this will be my reward. Right? Whoever did it, this will be my reward. I'm going to make sure I get a reward because I'm doing the right thing. But then we cancel it out by doing a wrong thing. Addison was just thrilled to death to get her stuff back. She didn't really care about the money, and it wasn't that much, maybe a couple $100, but what a blessing. We were happy just to get her stuff back. She didn't have to cancel her cards, get a new ID or anything like that. But that's how we think. We don't understand the concept of ownership or the rights of others. We're constantly thinking about, all right, what I want, what I'm going to get, how am I going to get it, and by golly, if I don't get it, I'm going to make you pay. I'm not going to go down all these tactics to avoid, just because we're getting short on time. But look at I'm going to point out one of them, and we talk about this a lot. We use our anger as a weapon, right? And we literally condition people, or we have conditioned people. This is what's kind of interesting to me. If it weren't funny, but it's interesting because I understand the sickness behind it. But growing up as a defense mechanism, in order to protect ourselves and to maintain a sense of control, which, by the way, never really did work. We got to start challenging that. It never really did work. We always felt like we weren't in control. You got to look at that. Because we will still use that behavior. We will still use anger as a weapon to regain control. Only we never had control. We got away with it at certain points in our life, throughout our life, right? Mom says no, we push a little harder. Mom says no, we push a little harder. Mom says, I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired, but remember, we don't have any concept of anything. So we don't care that she just got off work, that she, worked a 14-hour shift, she just wants to go to bed, she hasn't eaten. We don't care about those things. All we know is I want something, and I'm having to rely on Mom to get it or give it. And so we'll push and push and push and push until finally we'll just freak out. Well, this is bull crap, and you did it for my brother, and this isn't fair, and we will get very rambunctious. And then what happens? Fine, here's the card. Here's the keys. Here's $50. Here's whatever it is we were pushing. We used our anger as a weapon to ultimately get it. That's a major survival skill. But now's the time where we got to recognize it never really did work. All it does is hurt us and others. Oh yeah, I got some instant gratification. Sure, I was able to go party that night, or I was able to get the car that night, or whatever I was after. But is that really how we want to live our lives? As long as, I mean, are we going to really rest on that philosophy? As long as I get what I want, I don't care what happens to you. Huh. And the answer is, in early recovery, yes. Because we haven't applied any critical thinking to that yet. We got no problem, and I see it all the time, heck, I did it. We got no problem calling our families and hanging up on them. We got no problem, calling families and making our demands and using that anger, and then finally just click. When we hear the answer that we want, or we don't hear the answer that we want, click. Because we don't know how yet. But it's there. And, the primary reason it gets to illustrate this in such an in-depth way is to help us understand we're not even close to where we think we are. Hang on. That's manipulation. Just that last example. Seeing ourselves as the victim. That's not fair. Yeah, okay, that's total self-destructive. If you want to know why life hasn't worked out, well, a good place to start with looking is because we treat people like crap. Think about that for a minute. No, I'm a good person. I don't treat people like crap. Tell me no. Tell me what I don't want to hear, and I got no problem slamming the door in your face, hanging up on you, yelling at you, harassing you. Well, that doesn't sound like Miles. No, I don't want to think of myself like that, but that is how we act until change occurs. But then what do? Because we self-deceive, we act like, oh man, no, I'm good, I'm doing what I got. No, we're not. We got so much more to go. Okay, so real quickly, and I'll turn it off if you don't want to be on mic. Really try to apply some critical thinking to yourself. It all applies, but what caught you the most in this whole discussion? Any parts that you didn't sleep through? What set some bells and whistles off?
Lack of time perspective.
What do you see?
Just, I don't put, just things that have happened, they feel like they're just so close. They may have happened so long ago.
Yeah.
It still affects me like it happened that day.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So it's just that title, lack of time perspective. There's so much it applies to me.
Yeah, that's a scary one. But here's an important part. The way we move past that is that critical thinking and really applying facts. And we don't always know the real facts. All we really know is how we feel. All I know is how something makes me feel. But I don't know the facts. I just know that if I'm frustrated, it's probably because someone intentionally caused me to be frustrated. No, that's an assumption. What are the facts? The facts are nobody's sitting around thinking about me. Life just happens. And maybe I got in the line of fire today, but it really didn't have anything to do with me. That's why it's so important to always be talking about what we're thinking about. Because if we can talk about it and get it out, then we're open to a solution. We're open for someone else to say, it's like we got all this knowledge floating through the air, but we're not really sure which of it to grab and how to apply it and what do I need to let go of, what do I need to grab onto. If we can talk about what's in our thoughts, then we open ourselves up for someone else to grab this little piece and go, here, this is the part that you need. Get rid of that other part, but this is part, apply this part. But if we don't ever talk, we stay sick.
And expect others to act immediately on my demands. When I was using, I was such an asshole. I mean, if something didn't happen, when I needed it, because I always would create chaos.
Yeah.
I gotta pay this bill, or they're cutting it off. And, it was just nonstop putting my family in that position of chaos.
What's
pretty bad.
What's funny about that is not funny, but I totally relate to that one. I think we kind of become masters of that. If it's that important, think about this. This is how irrational our life is. If it's really that important,
You should take care of it.
exactly. Why did I wait till an hour before? Well, so that I could manipulate it. Because if I talked about it a week in advance, hey mother, I got this thing, it's going to be coming up, I'm going to need $468, I got to keep my electricity on, I might not get it. She might say, well, good Lord, that's a whole week away, can't you do something about it? She would put the responsibility back on me. I have to wait, if I'm going to manipulate, I have to wait until the last minute, show up with a master crisis, and then turn it into a granddaughter issue. Oh my God, your granddaughter won't have electricity. Your granddaughter won't be able to go to school tomorrow. Your granddaughter, and I can just create all kinds of nonsense about it.
And sometimes it was, sometimes I would purposely do that timeline thing. And sometimes I was just so shot out that I literally didn't know what was going on, and I'd get a call or something, or I would forget to pay rent. I'd be so just screwed up in the head.
Yeah.
I would literally forget that I needed to pay rent.
Yeah.
And it was pretty bad. Before I came here, even my parents, they're just like, you don't make any sense. My thinking was so. I had no perception of reality. It was just solely focused on getting that. That was it.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have an abundance of that, then my body was so out of whack. It was just, yeah.
You don't make any sense.
Yeah. It was.
Okay, well, here's the kicker. It's the easy part is to relate this to big examples. Here's where the critical thinking comes in. Start noticing how it also applies today. What small things do I react to? What small things do I lack time perspective? What small things do I still try to manipulate? Because remember, until complete transformation occurs, this is still very much a part of our thinking. You want to add anything?
I think we should scratch the whole recovery video idea and just start doing psychic miles or something,
Psychic miles. That's
Start a
1-800.
channel about that, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching this probably think you have a camera in their house or something.
Yeah.
Because all this just kind of...
That's how not unique we are.
Yeah. It just... Everything you said applies, and as you were going through it, I had a bunch of examples, but I kind of forgot a bunch of them. But I guess the one that I really struggle with today is just the complete need to control every situation. And that's probably something with my whole life ahead of me, that's what I'm going to really struggle with. Just using manipulation to stay in control.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
So what does that...
What does it look like?
Yeah, what does that look like for you?
Um,
What are some of the things?
trying to think of like some examples. I mean, I guess just you want to be in control of, like, for example, let's just say a new person is coming. You know, you want to be somehow have control of that, of who's gonna come.
Right.
You know, you don't know
Yeah.
what to expect. Like,
What if I don't like the person? What
Yeah.
if they stink?
So you get like a sense of anxiousness about it. You get angry. You know, you want someone to manipulate it. You know, you like that's just a small. That's just a small example.
That's a great example.
Yeah, you know, because I just know because that happens. I've seen it like 100 times. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't had 100 people go through here, but you know, I've seen it every single time.
A lot, yeah.
When a single person comes in, and I've done it, and I still do it. You know, and just shopping trips. I used to literally lose my mind over shopping trips. Like, I wanted total control. I wanted to have the money in my hands, so I could, you know, I don't care if you guys were gonna buy everything I asked for. I still wanted to have the money in my hand, in my pocket, just so I could feel like I'm in control of it. You know, like there's really no rationale to it.
Yeah.
It's just like a control thing, I guess. You know.
Well, the fear. What's the fear?
So yeah, it's
Something
you lose
might go
something
wrong.
you think you had.
Yeah.
You know, thinking something you had. You know, the ownership attitude. That was a really big problem for me because you know I thought anything that was in my possession was basically mine, no matter how I achieved it, or how I got it. You know, I would even think that things I stole from other people were mine. You know, because I stole it. You know, I remember when I was living at the monastery, when I was selling a bunch of stuff for them,
Yeah.
I ended up, they had so much stuff that they didn't keep track of it. They had like a suitcase full of jewelry and stuff, and you know, I went through it. I picked out some of the things that, you know, I wanted, but I felt like it was my right to take them because I was doing something good for them. So
Yeah.
that's how I rationalized it. So
Yeah.
I took those things, I had them, and then I sold them at a pawn shop because I was getting high, and I was so pissed about losing that jewelry I sold, but it wasn't mine in the first place. But you know, like, I was like so worked up about they ripped me off on that, you know, like, or I would steal something, I would go sell it, and I'd be pissed off at how much I got for it.
Yeah.
Because I thought that it was mine.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big example, but something as simple as buying, having someone buy something for me, not with my own money, and then that gets ruined, that gets stolen, that gets whatever. You get worked. That was my thing. You know, and you got to really remember like how you acquired that thing.
Yeah.
For me, it's you have a receipt and everything, but I guess it's just how it's acquired. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we lose or we're missing the concept of gratitude. Even if we've acquired something in a legitimate way, and okay, I've got the receipt, or I've got the title, or I've got the deed. Where's the gratitude?
That's it.
This is mine. You can't look at it. You can't touch it. You can't borrow it. That's a sucky way to live. That's just a sucky way to live. And we know that we're the evidence of that, because that's how we've been living, and it just really hadn't worked out too much. Well, those are really good examples, and I could keep talking. This is such a critical topic. So now ask yourself, think about this, chew on this a little bit, and look at, you recognize some things about yourself. What can you do different? That's the thing. Don't think because, whatever, however many days sober, that this doesn't apply. It's not I spent the first 10 minutes of this prefacing that. It's just not a past tense thing. I still have these characteristics. I'm glad you brought up, maybe new people coming in the group. Well, how can we work on that? I feel the same way. I get the same anxiety because I don't know what to expect. We never know what to expect, but what's the reality? The reality is, well, that is what this is about, right? The other part of that reality is what's my role as a human being in recovery? My role is to try to carry the message. My role is to be welcoming and to be loving, but we tend to jump on the judgmental side first. We want to decide first. Will I get along with this person? Will I not get along with this person? Will they like me? Will I like them? We'll wait to see if they pass our approval process, and then we'll decide to be nice. And then we can't figure out why we keep repeating this stuff. That's part of that sickness. What if we could just do what we're supposed to do as humans? What if we can just, our job is just to be loving, welcoming, as helpful as we can be, but that's really it. We don't necessarily have to like each other. We don't have to, agree with each other. But in my uniqueness, I could start thinking, well, you know what? I'm the only one that deserves a solution. Not everybody else deserves the same solution that I get. It's this thinking. It's addict thinking. It's criminal thinking. It will keep us sick. So, and a lot of that has those control issues, and there's trauma there. But that's the solution, is digging through that, not waiting to see if a person, place, or thing is going to be acceptable. The solution is never with the other person. We've got to grow to a spiritual place where we can be surrounded by complete, ugly, idiotic, moronic, mean, cantankerous, aggressive, whatever people, and still be okay with me. If I need someone else to be anything other than what they are, in order for me to be okay, I'm in big trouble. That's the point. So work through those things. Because, our old way of working through is just to be anxious, be anxious, be anxious, be anxious, until we meet the person, and then we decide, oh, okay, you're cool, man. It's fine. No, it needs to be fine. I need to be fine no matter what. How are we going to handle, getting new coworkers? I mean, we are going to go to work. How are we going to handle when a new classmate shows up in school? How are we going to handle when a new roommate comes in, or a person moves in next door? Or see, these are life skills that we're developing. Oh, whoa. We're not going to always be protected out there. And yet, our unique thinking thinks we're supposed to be. It's wrong thinking. Okay, that's a long one. That's a long one. In fact, I'm going to make that a weekend assignment. You guys got to go back and watch the whole video on Saturday during football time. I'm just kidding. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in. Check out our website at www.justinslighthouse.com. www.justinslighthouse.com. Thank you very much. And my mouse broke.